this. This is about to get crazy up in here. So let's go like this. There we go. Here we go. Your mind was never sick. The mental health lie exposed. Mental health was invented, and mental illness was invented, not discovered. You've been tricked into believing your pain and your struggles with life are diseases. Now I'm going to show you how this happened, who profits from it, the real world effects, and the way out. Welcome to the Summerland Welcome to the Summerland Framework. I'm Garrett Dawn with the Summerland Academy for Radical Undoing, helping people break out of the invisible asylum that the entire planet has been imprisoned within. Since I've been helping people break out of that since 2006 professionally, about 6 years prior to that, on a more amateur street level. Let's begin. If you watched my live stream from the other day, I covered the first 2 points, but then I started digging around and there was things I wanted to add. So we're just going to cover everything again here. I'm going to go all the way through. Stay till the end because I'm going to have a nice surprise for you, a couple nice surprises for you at the end. Plus, how you can work with me directly, both in person and then also with groups online. We've got a really amazing training coming up very soon, so stick around for that. But regardless, I'm going to give you solutions you can apply immediately today and show you how to find them on the channel and through the website and other places. And you can apply those right away, whether you want to work with me on a paid level or just want to start doing the exercises that are available for free. I've got a voluminous amount of materials floating around out there, so I'll direct you to those as well. These are real solutions. As to what? Well, I'm going to tell you what here live on the stream. So let's. Basically, the invisible prison, anxiety, depression, emptiness, and official solutions that never address the root causes. This is all by design, not by random twists of fate. And there's a century-old network of social engineers, trauma researchers, propagandists, and profiteers who have constructed an all-encompassing maze. The core lies in the medicalization of dissent, trauma, suffering, and childhood itself. And this is all achieved through psychiatry's alliance with state and corporate power. So based on my extensive research, plus 20 years of working with people to help them break free from this invisible prison, of which I didn't really understand the design of until this year. I knew what was going on. I knew what people were suffering from, but I didn't know in detail how this situation happened and the actual structure of that invisible asylum that's been installed in the minds of almost everyone on the planet. So yeah, based on my extensive research into declassified documents, academic sources, and historical evidence, this comprehensive analysis is going to provide the factual foundation for understanding the systematic psychological warfare operations conducted against you and the rest of humanity. I'm naming the framework, the Summerland Framework, after the place in the show Legion when the mutants break David Haller out of the asylum and they take him to the forest deep in the Canadian wilderness to a place called Summerland. And that's where they show him that he's not sick, but that he actually has powers, and they're going to teach him how to control and use those powers. So I've named, that's where I got the name for the Summerland Academy. Now you know. Highly recommend watching at least the first episode of the TV show Legion. It's an FX series. I think you can get it on Amazon or wherever you can download shows. So this framework, the Summerland Framework, exposes the invisible architecture of control that has shaped modern civilization through coordinated programs of mental manipulation, cultural destruction, and social engineering. So, number one, Tavistock, Bernays, Freud, and the psychiatry establishment, the architects of mass mind control. And I want to say one more thing. In the description, you'll find a link to all, not all, but many of the resources I've used in compiling this video. Okay, so have a look if you want to go deep into those yourself. But just so you know, I've got all the receipts for this. None of this is conspiracy at all. So, the foundations of modern psychological warfare begins with a convergence of influential figures and institutions in the early 20th century. So the Tavistock Clinic, founded in 1920 by Hugh Crichton Miller at 51 Tavistock Square, London, was ostensibly created to treat shell shock victims from World War I. However, this humanitarian facade conceals a far more ambitious agenda, which is the development of systematic techniques for controlling human consciousness on a mass scale. So Edward Bernays, engineering consent through unconscious manipulation. Edward Bernays, nephew of Sigmund Freud, became the primary architect of what he termed the engineering of consent. In his 1928 work, Propaganda, Bernays explicitly outlined his vision: the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. What a statement, guy. What a statement. You sick man. This was not mere theoretical speculation, but it formed the foundation for his blueprint, operational blueprint for mass psychological control. Bernays' approach relied heavily on his uncle Freud's psychoanalytic theories, particularly the concept that human behavior is driven by unconscious desires rather than rational thought. As he explained, quote, "It is chiefly the psychologists of the school of Freud who have pointed out that many of man's thoughts and actions are compensatory substitutes for desires which he has been obliged to suppress." Unquote. Now, this insight became the foundation for bypassing conscious resistance and directly manipulating the unconscious mind. So the practical applications were immediate and absolutely devastating. So he worked first for the American Tobacco Company and orchestrated a campaign that broke the taboo against women smoking by linking cigarettes to torches of freedom during a 1929 Easter parade. Look this shit up. You can't make this up. It's so insane. The campaign exploited unconscious desires for liberation and equality, transforming a health hazard into a symbol of women's empowerment. Now, this represented a template for all future psychological operations. Identify unconscious desires, attach them to commercial or political objectives, and manipulate behavior without the subject's awareness. Okay. And a little bit more about Tavistock. It was founded by a corps of British Army psychiatrists and psychoanalysts, including John Rawlings Rees, Wilfred Bion, Elliot Jock, Kurt Levin. And they basically, their work for the British Army during World War II basically merged psychoanalysis and social manipulation. And also something I'm going to mention later, Operation Phoenix. It was post-war social re-engineering arm of the Tavistock Institute, funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, and it blends military and group dynamics for peacetime control. Quote, invisible college and group relations movement. So you can study more of that through the links, the link full of links in the resources section. Bernays and Freud. Edward Bernays built on Freud's work. He pioneered the use of mass media to shape public opinion through the unconscious manipulation, as I said. And his techniques, Bernays' techniques, were used to engineer war support, consumer revolutions, and behavioral change, which fit in with Tavistock's medical redefinition of cultural conflict as mental health disorders. This is crazy, totally crazy. So let's keep going here. And then I'll give you key takeaways after each section. So this is still part of section 1, Tavistock, Bernays, Freud, and psychiatric establishment. So the Tavistock evolution from treatment to social engineering, the Tavistock Institute's transformation reveals the systematic nature of this agenda. So during World War II, key Tavistock personnel joined what became known as the Invisible College, working on psychological warfare operations for the British Army. This military application of psychiatric techniques proved so successful that it formed the basis for post-war social engineering programs. So in 1945, under the leadership of Wilfrid Bion, Tavistock launched Operation Phoenix, as I mentioned, not to be confused with the later CIA program of the same name, which we will also get into. This initiative aimed to reconstruct society using the psychological manipulation techniques developed during wartime. Again, the Rockefeller Foundation provided funding for the creation of the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations in 1946, establishing a permanent center for studying group dynamics and social control. Next little subsection, the psychiatric establishment as control mechanism. So the convergence of Freudian psychology, Bernaysian propaganda, and Tavistock social engineering created a new form of social control disguised as mental health treatment. The psychiatric establishment became a delivery system for techniques originally developed for warfare, now applied to civilian populations. This represented a fundamental shift. So entire populations were redefined as patients requiring therapeutic intervention, with the psychiatric profession serving as the administrators of a vast program of behavioral modification. The evidence shows that this was not an accidental development. This coordinated strategy they developed has just devastated the minds of probably billions of humans. One of the internal documents noted, quote, "If we understand the mechanism and motives of the group mind, is it not possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will without their knowing about it?" Unquote. The answer, based on the subsequent century of psychological manipulation, is an unequivocal yes. So just a couple main points about this, key takeaways for section 1. Modern mass media, propaganda, human relations or HR departments, and public health messaging can all be traced to these institutions and figures. Psychiatry borrows medicine's prestige, turning ordinary suffering, nonconformity, or dissent into, quote, mental illness needing, quote, treatment. Okay, so let's move on to section, let's go here. Let's go to section number 2, war on culture, especially Christianity, the systematic destruction of Western spiritual foundation. So just some highlights, some notes for this so you can know what we're about to get into. We're going to cover critical theory, the Frankfurt School, Max Horkheimer, Theodor Adorno, and Erich Fromm, who reframed Christianity, family, and tradition as inherently suspicious. Second, American media, academia, and therapy imported these ideas, promoting skepticism of faith and inherited culture while pathologizing religious commitment as, quote, fundamentalist, delusional, or even psychotic, unquote. Therapeutic state messages now undermine parental authority, religious schooling, and ancient practices of Christianity. And then we'll get into the real world effects and key takeaways at the end of section 2. So section 2, the targeting of Christianity and traditional Western culture represents one of the most documented aspects of the broader social engineering agenda. This assault operates on This assault operates on multiple levels, from academic institutions to popular culture, employing sophisticated psychological warfare techniques to undermine the spiritual and cultural foundations that have traditionally provided meaning and social cohesion. The Frankfurt School's cultural Marxism strategy. The Frankfurt School, established in 1923 at the University of Frankfurt, developed what became known as critical theory, a systemic approach to deconstructing Western civilization. Now, unlike traditional Marxism, which focused on economic class struggle, the Frankfurt School recognized that culture was the primary battleground for social transformation. As they argued, quote, culture as a driving force in society, unquote, required direct attack rather than merely being treated as a byproduct of economic systems. Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno, leading figures of the school, developed the concept of the, quote, culture industry, unquote. They argued that mass-produced cultural content served as a mechanism for social control, creating what they called pleasant slavery through entertainment that pacified the masses. However, their critique was not just analytical. They also developed operational strategies and techniques for manipulating culture and society to the ends they thought were beneficial for all of us in their twisted little minds. The Frankfurt School sought to replace existing cultural forms with new ones that would facilitate social transformation. By the way, if you're here watching this, please leave a comment and let me know that you can see and hear me all right. I don't want to do all this in vain. So then here we go. The school's approach, the Frankfurt School's approach, the Frankfurt School sought to replace existing cultural forms with new ones that would facilitate social transformation. As I said, the school's approach involved several coordinated strategies. Number one, undermining traditional authority structures. So critical theory systematically attacked all forms of traditional authority, including religious institutions, patriarchal family structures, and national identities. This was not presented as ideological opposition, but instead they masked it as scientific analysis and lent academic credibility to what essentially was just a program of cultural demolition. Point number two, redefining social justice. The Frankfurt School redefined concepts of justice, equality, and human rights in ways that contradicted traditional teachings. So rather than seeking reform within existing structures, they aimed for what Herbert Marcuse called the Great Refusal, which is a complete rejection of existing social order. Point number three of the Frankfurt School coordinated strategies is creating new forms of consciousness. So critical theory aimed not to just critique existing culture, but actually create and manipulate us into accepting new forms of consciousness that would be incompatible with traditional Western values. Now, this involved developing new psychological frameworks for understanding identity, morality, and social relationships. Think about that for a second. They had as their conscious stated intention to develop psychological frameworks and install those into your head that would manipulate your understanding of your own identity, your understanding of morality, and to predefine our sense of social relationships. Okay, so this is a prepackaged psychological manipulation that we've all been subject to. Keep that in mind. Number four, and I know some of you are not Orthodox Christians yet, or that you might have a big problem with Christianity, but bear with me. This is all part of the puzzle. Okay, part of why many people have such a huge resistance to Christianity, notwithstanding the insanity of Protestantism and the complete incoherence and guilt-ridden madness of Catholicism. Okay, but why people have a resistance generally to the ideas of Christianity is not because they sat and thought about it and analyzed the evidence and then decided to have that resistance. It's been engineered into you. Okay, there's a lot of undoing that's going to have to take place for you to see and understand what I'm getting to. I'm not saying, rush to the church, although it's a good idea, but I am saying to put pause on your reactions until you get through all this material and see what has happened, and then examine the world anew from a fresh and undone and clear perspective, okay, without or outside of all the programming that I'm getting into here that we've been subject to. So that with that little digression, point number four, Christianity as primary target. So Christianity faced particular scrutiny from the Frankfurt School because it provided the foundational worldview for Western civilization. Research documents show systematic efforts to undermine Christian influence across multiple domains. What are those domains? Educational institutions, academic programs increasingly started to portray Christianity as a source of oppression, violence, and social dysfunction. This is historic revisionism. It ignored Christianity's roles in developing concepts of human rights, universities, hospitals, and social welfare systems. And as a side note, I want you to know, I want to debunk this idea because people say that religions start all, that religion is responsible for starting wars. That's a big fat lie. Let me get the data point here for you. Let's see, statistics. on all recorded wars, how many were religious based? And it's gonna blow your mind if you didn't ever look this up. Okay. According to a survey of the 1,763 recorded wars recorded in human history, only 7%, and you can look this up yourself. Okay, only 7% were religiously motivated, totaling approximately 121 wars out of 1,763. And further analysis shows that if wars waged in the name of Islam are excluded, because Islam is a war-based religion, and violence-based religion, it's in their own theology, but the way they're supposed to expand the religion. The percentage, if you remove Islam, the percentage drops to around 3%. So when you're blaming Christianity for making wars, let's just be totally generous and say all the rest of that 3% was Christianity. Then it's 3% of all the wars in human history were apparently driven by Christianity. So religion is not the main cause of most wars. Most wars have been driven by political, territorial, and/or ideological factors, often incompatible cultures coming into contact with each other. And this feeds back into part of what has gone on with what we'll get into in section 3, the Phoenix Plan, Tavistock's post-war strategy, which has to do with breaking down national borders throughout the world, which we see happening with the North America and what we see happening with the EU, erasing borders and then creating economic disparity in order to foment mass migration of incompatible cultures into the West. This isn't a judgment on people from other cultures, but this is part of their plan. And you need to research this for yourself if you want to see. But for now, take my word for it. Vietnam was the test case. Okay. They created economic instability in the North deliberately, and then sent people from there, sent the North to the South in Vietnam, promising them food and jobs and money and resources. And then when they got there, instead of receiving that, they gave them weapons and an ideology, and then they started that war. And then the same people went in and did the Vietnam War and tested on the American soldiers. And we'll get there. But anyway, just wanted to mention how the mass migration, this relates because my digression was about most wars were caused by political, territorial, or ideological factors, including incompatible cultures being forced to mix together. And that's what they're doing deliberately now, bringing incompatible cultures together. And then they call you a racist to you if you question it. What if I just don't like war? So let's keep going. So where were we at? We're on Christianity as a primary target. We're in section number 2, war on culture. And then we got to, let's see. The efforts to undermine Christian influence across multiple domains. So I mentioned educational institutions. That's how we got into the war thing. So the historical revisionism ignores Christianity's role in developing concepts of human rights, universities, hospitals, and social welfare systems. If you didn't know, universities and that type of learning came out of monasteries and the way that they were studying there. Let me have a sip of tea here. So, cultural representation. Mass media consistently portrayed Christian characters and institutions negatively while celebrating alternative spiritual practices and secular ideologies. This represented a coordinated campaign to reshape public perception of Christianity's social value. Next, theological subversion. Liberal theological movements worked to reinterpret Christian doctrine in ways that aligned with secular progressive values. If Belch's farts and yawns take precedence, even for me and for you, sneezes as well, but those are less intentional. Sorry, harder to block. Theological subversion. Liberal theological movements worked to reinterpret Christian doctrine in ways that aligned with secular progressive values. Let me grab this here. Effectively hollowing out the faith from within. This created confusion about authentic Christian teaching and weakened the church's ability to provide cultural leadership. This is all by design. All by design. So the evidence indicates that these attacks were not random or spontaneous, but represented coordinated efforts by individuals and institutions committed to transforming Western civilization. As one internal document stated, the goal was to, quote, abolish social injustice, unquote, by eliminating traditional forms of social organization, with Christianity identified as the primary obstacle to this transformation. Isn't that hilarious? We're going to abolish social injustice by using insane, violent, manipulative, deceptive, horrific psychological and psychiatric techniques and drugs and weapons. We're going to eliminate social injustice through those means. You see who we're dealing with here? Do you understand what's going on? How crazy that is? How totally insane that is? And they're going to call us insane. They're going to call you insane. Okay. By the way, please leave a comment in the chat. I just want to, let me see, live chat. Okay. Yeah, please leave a comment in the chat. Let me know you can see and hear me all right. So we're just finishing up with section number 2. And let's get just some key takeaways from my additional notes here. What else did I want to mention? So just to sum it up, key takeaways from section 2, the war on culture, Christianity targeted. Critical theory, Frankfurt School, as I mentioned, reframed Christianity, family, and tradition as inherently suspicious. This is why you've been trained in the culture and in school and everything. This is how you were trained to just reject Christianity as crazy. And part of their efforts were to promote those crazy forms of Christianity, all the Protestant garbage, all the Catholic insanity, which is just getting worse and worse now, and basically erasing the true Christianity from, so you wouldn't even think to look at it, because what we've been trained to associate Christianity with is all this crazy stuff, which I agree. I agree with the atheists that most so-called Christianity is ridiculous and insane perversions of what the original faith is. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that too much here. You can go to the other channel, Theosis Spiritual Talks, at youtube.com/Garrett Don if you want to hear more on the theological side of things. But for now, we're going to stay with the Summerland framework. So, so therapeutic state messages now undermine parental authority, religious schooling, and ancient rites. Real-world effects, U.S. church attendance is dropped below 25%. I don't care so much about that research, because we need to understand which churches are we talking about. But more importantly, family disintegration and addiction rates are soaring where faith communities decline. Can't be denied. Orthodox Christian tradition recognizes this rupture as a loss of logos, spiritual order replaced by spiritual emptiness. Just as a little shout out to my Orthodox brothers and sisters out there. So let's get into some meat here. Let's get into some real crazy stuff. Now we're at section 3. Section 3. If somebody wants to do the timestamps, if you're watching this video later, I would appreciate that. Man, is my mic working? Okay, yeah, it's working. Okay. Please, someone, if you're watching, please comment. Let me know. Let me just check. I'm just gonna monitor this and see if I can hear myself. Forgive me for a second. I'm gonna mute the mic and just check this out. Okay. Okay, yeah, the mic works. It just wasn't registering the way I wanted to on the monitor here. So anyway, let's keep on going. So we're at section number 3, the Phoenix Plan: burn everything down, orchestrated collapse, and reconstructions. Let's give a quick overview. Tavistock's blueprint is to create social crises, economic shocks, war trauma, quote, mental health panics. Why? To dissolve loyalty to faith, family, and local identity, which is so important. Local identity is real identity. It's where you live. It's your neighbors, how you're treating yourself, your family, and your neighbors. Okay. That's the most important aspect of your identity, the local identity. Urban renewal, generational divorce revolutions, endless mental health pandemics, and all justified by pseudoscience and pseudo medical diagnosis and top down policy. Sick motherfuckers, man. Social chaos is not only a byproduct, but a tool for instilling dependence on state, expert, and pharmaceutical so-called solutions. Let's get into it. The phoenix symbolism, which is that mythical bird that rises out of the ashes. So their idea is that you have to completely destroy the Western world and Western civilization in order for their plan to rise out of the ashes, which is this global, melted down, sleepwalking, drugged, bottomized mass. The phoenix symbolism reveals a deeper strategy underlying the social engineering agenda. The deliberate destruction of existing social order to enable the construction of new forms of control. This approach, documented in both Tavistock operations and broader cultural transformation programs, follows a consistent pattern of manufactured crisis followed by predetermined solutions. How do you like that? Tavistock's Operation Phoenix, 1945 to 1947, established the template for systematic social transformation. Named after the mythical bird that I mentioned, the phoenix that rises from its own ashes, this program applied wartime psychological techniques to peacetime social reconstruction. The operation recognized that traditional social structures, such as family, community, and religious institutions, provided psychological anchoring that made populations resistant to manipulation. I'm going to give that to you again. Operation Phoenix recognized that traditional social structures, family, community, and religious institutions provided psychological anchoring that makes populations resistant to manipulation. The strategy involves several coordinated phases. Phase 1 of Operation Phoenix, psychological destabilization. Traditional sources of meaning and identity were systematically undermined through academic critique, media representation, and institutional policies. This created what psychologists term anomie, A-N-O-M-I-E, a state of normlessness where individuals lose connection to traditional social anchors. Phase 2, social fragmentation. Communities were broken apart through urbanization, mobility, and the promotion of individualism over collective identity. Now, this is an interesting side note, but if you look into when automobiles were very first coming out, and I believe Ted Kaczynski covered this in his manifesto, he mentioned this. There was resistance to the advent of the automobile because it was promoted. Well, you don't have to have one, but what Kaczynski noted, which was so prophetic and interesting, was that he mentioned that there were resistors to this that said, no, what's going to happen is everything is going to be dependent on cars. So our whole community and way of life is going to be completely destroyed and transformed by the automobile. So that, and this is what's meant by partly by mobility. Well, we have the freedom to just drive anywhere at any time. But what it does is breaks apart communities. It breaks apart social cohesion in the local structure. Yes, of course, there's benefits to it. I'm not complaining about it in that way, but I'm just pointing out you got to see how this all works together. So communities were broken apart through urbanization, mobility, and the promotion of individualism over collective identity. This eliminated the local social networks that traditionally provided support and resistance to external manipulation. Phase 3, institutional capture. Key institutions, education, media, and religious organizations were gradually influenced by individuals committed to the transformation agenda. This ensured that socialization process would reinforce rather than resist the new social order. Phase 4, cultural reconstruction. New forms of identity, meaning, and social organization were promoted to replace traditional structures. These new forms were designed to be more amenable to external control and less capable of generating independent resistance. Let's see here. And now we'll get on to another section, another part of section 3, which is the manufacturing of crisis. Research reveals that many social crises attributed to natural development or unforeseeable circumstances were actually the result of deliberate policy decisions designed to accelerate social transformation. This follows what Naomi Klein documented as shock doctrine, the exploitation of crisis to implement policies that would otherwise face popular resistance. Examples of manufactured crisis include, number 1, family breakdown, policies promoting easy divorce, alternative family structures, and the redefinition of marriage were implemented not to serve individual freedom, but to fragment the primary source of social stability. Academic research consistently shows that intact families provide psychological resilience that makes individuals less susceptible to external manipulation. This is documented in the notes, my friends. Number 2, cultural relativism, the promotion of multiculturalism. And I always think of a petri dish full of mold of different kinds. The promotion of multiculturalism and cultural relativism was not designed to celebrate diversity, but to undermine confidence in Western cultural values. By suggesting that all cultural forms are equally valid, this approach eliminated the possibility of defending any popular cultural tradition against external attack. Educational transformation. Number 3, changes in educational curricula and methods were implemented to produce graduates less capable of independent thought and more susceptible to authority. This involved replacing classical education focused on developing logic and reasoning ability with progressive education focused on emotional manipulation and social conformity. The phoenix rises, new order from controlled chaos. The evidence suggests that the chaos and dysfunction visible in contemporary society are not accidental byproducts of social change, but necessary preconditions for implementing new forms of control. This has all been engineered, my friends. Are you starting to see it? Once you see this, you can't unsee it. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be painful, but I'm going to give you the ways out as well, okay? And what you can do, how you can get your peace back from these crazy bastards, okay? As one Tavistock document noted, the old world must be reduced to ashes before the new order can emerge. This new order of the Tavistock bastards involves several key characteristics. Number 1, centralized control. Traditional local and regional autonomy is replaced by centralized decision-making systems. WHO, anybody? One among many of these institutions. Centralized decision-making systems that can be more easily controlled by small groups of experts and administrators. 2, psychological dependency. Individuals lose the psychological resources provided by traditional communities and families and become dependent on professional services and institutional support systems. Number 3, ideological uniformity. Cultural diversity and intellectual pluralism are replaced by enforced adherence to approved ideologies and acceptable forms of expression. Number 4, technological integration. Human behavior is increasingly monitored and modified through technological systems that provide unprecedented capabilities for social control. So the Phoenix Plan represents the overarching strategy that connects all other aspects of the social engineering agenda. By understanding this pattern, we can see how apparently disconnected social phenomena, and like as I've identified, that's from educational reform through to media manipulation and cultural transformation, actually serve coordinated objectives in a larger program of controlled social change. Okay? Social chaos is not a byproduct but it's a tool for instilling dependence on state, expert, and pharmaceutical solutions. This is why people are on drugs, my friends. This is crazy. I hope you're seeing the outlines of this. I know it's tough to stick around for a long video like this, but just do it. This is probably the most important video you'll ever see if you're struggling and you want to have proper context and learn how to struggle and suffer with purpose instead of being living as a victim of fake suffering, trapped inside the hellish snow globe of the imagination by design. Let's keep going. Number 4. Oh, we got this confused in my notes here. Let me take a look here. Let's see. This is going to become real crazy stuff here. Here's what we'll do. I'm going to save these other notes just as a recap at the end. And instead of trying to go through them all at once, I got a little ambitious with this. So I'll put these here as a recap for the end. And I'm just going to stick with this part of the plan here. Okay, here we go. Let's go like this. Look at all this crap, huh? All right. So let's get into it here. Section number 4. This is some scary stuff. So viewer discretion is advised. So let's keep going. Project Phoenix. This viewer discretion is advised here. This is heavy stuff. Okay. You can again trace all this back with the notes in the resources document. Project Phoenix, serial killers as weapons of psychological warfare. The CIA's Phoenix program in Vietnam, 1967 through 1972, represented the operational culmination of psychological warfare research developed through MKUltra and related programs. And I've done some pretty deep research into MKUltra. What we have is because they destroyed most of the documents of it and even killed off most of the people who were involved in it. So we have, let's say, 1 or 2 or maybe at the most 5% of what was actually going on, and they destroyed the records of it, plus other related programs as well. But we know enough to know how crazy it was and how it connects to this whole story I'm giving you. So the CIA's Phoenix program in Vietnam, 1967 through 1972, represented the operational culmination of psychological warfare research developed through MKUltra and related programs. While officially described as a counterinsurgency operation, declassified documents reveal that Phoenix served as a testing ground for trauma-based social control techniques later exported worldwide. So let's say that again. The Vietnam War counterinsurgency operation served as a testing ground for trauma-based social control techniques later exported worldwide. The Phoenix program, systematic terror as social control. The Phoenix program was designed ostensibly to neutralize the Viet Cong infrastructure through targeted assassinations, torture, and psychological operations. However, the program's actual implementation reveals a more sinister agenda: the systematic creation of trauma and terror to break down social cohesion and traditional cultural structures. Between 1967 and 1972, Phoenix operations resulted in 81,740 people neutralized, which means killed, captured, or defected, 26,369 confirmed deaths, hundreds of thousands subjected to torture in provincial interrogation centers. The program's documentation reveals sophisticated psychological techniques. And I see you there in the comments, SSS. I'm sorry to hear about that, but thank you for being here. And please avail yourself of the exercises and the techniques here on the channel. And thank you for being here again. And sorry for what you're going through. So the program's documentation reveals sophisticated psychological techniques. Number 1, trauma-based programming. Phoenix operatives employed systematic torture methods designed not merely to extract information, but to fragment personality and create dissociative states. These techniques included electroshock therapy, called the Bell telephone hour, sensory deprivation and overstimulation, sexual assault and psychological humiliation, the use of hallucinogenic substances during interrogation, and the systematic destruction of family and community bonds. Number 2, psychological warfare operations. Phoenix teams engaged in deliberate terror attacks designed to traumatize entire communities. Operations included nighttime assassination raids targeting families, public displays of torture and execution, psychological operations using supernatural and religious symbolism. And I could do a video on each of these points. It would blow your mind, okay? And I probably will. I'll go deep into each of these sections later in separate videos. We're going to keep running with all this. I'm making a book about this as well. But the most important point is you see the outline of the invisible prison and then avail yourself of the free and or paid trainings that I've got to help you get out of it. And I'll show you how to vet anyone else's offerings as well, so you don't get lost. Anyway, we'll get there when we get to part 5. So psychological warfare operations, as I mentioned, using supernatural and religious symbolism, and then the creation of black propaganda, quote unquote, designed to turn communities against each other. And number 3, creating human weapons. Most significantly, Phoenix represented an attempt to create what internal documents called programmable assets, individuals whose personalities had been systematically shattered and reconstructed to serve specific operational purposes. If you read the book Programmed to Kill by David McGowan, you'll see sort of some of the end result of that, how they created basically the serial killer phenomenon. Whew, let's keep going. And please, if you're here, please comment and like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It really helps me out. I would appreciate it. Thank you. And let's keep going. Going to get deeper and darker until we get to the light at the end of this. Oh, the export of Phoenix techniques. Research indicates that Phoenix methods were not confined to Vietnam, but were systematically exported through CIA training programs and psychiatric networks worldwide. This is like Hannibal Lecter operating anywhere you find psychiatry rearing its ugly, disgusting head. This represents the seeding of psychological warfare techniques throughout the global psychiatric establishment. It's so crazy when you really understand this. Training programs. This is the export of Phoenix techniques. Training programs. The CIA established training facilities where Phoenix techniques were taught to personnel from allied nations. The Army's Special Warfare School at Fort Bragg developed specialized curricula in counterinsurgency operations that included psychological manipulation and trauma-based control methods. Psychiatric integration. Phoenix techniques were integrated into psychiatric practice through professional networks and research programs. This created a global infrastructure capable of implementing trauma-based control methods under the guise of mental health treatment. Number 3, cultural transmission. The psychological profiles and behavioral patterns characteristic of Phoenix-created personalities began appearing in popular culture, entertainment media, and academic research. This suggests systematic efforts to normalize psychopathic behavior and traumatic dissociation. So those are just 3 of the many ways that the export of the Phoenix techniques happened. Okay, it's crazy. It's crazy. And if you're asking why, I'm going to get there with this as well. And we've covered that a little bit in the beginning. So now the serial killer phenomenon. Operation Phoenix comes home. The emergence of serial killing as a widespread cultural phenomenon in the United States coincides precisely with the implementation and termination of the Phoenix program. This correlation suggests a causal relationship. Phoenix techniques created individuals programmed for violence and then released these assets into civilian populations. There's temporal correlation. The serial killer phenomenon exploded in the United States beginning in the 1970s. immediately following the Phoenix program's supposed conclusion. This timing suggests that individuals programmed through Phoenix techniques were being deployed domestically. Behavioral patterns. Serial killers consistently exhibit psychological profiles matching those described in Phoenix program documentation. Dissociative identity disorder, systematic trauma responses, ritualistic behavior patterns, specific triggers for violent episodes, and sophisticated manipulation abilities. Geographic distribution. Areas with high concentrations of CIA facilities, military installations, and psychiatric research centers show correspondingly high rates of serial killer activity. This pattern suggests institutional rather than random origins for these individuals. Media amplification. The extensive media coverage and cultural fascination with serial killers was created to normalize violence and create what researchers term trauma contagion, the spread of traumatic patterns through cultural transmission. This represents a form of psychological warfare directed against civilian populations. The evidence indicates that Phoenix represented not only a military operation. There, I lost my spot. Sorry. The evidence indicates that Phoenix represented not only a military operation, it included a laboratory for developing techniques of trauma-based social control. The quote-unquote serial killers produced by Project Phoenix, by the Phoenix program, serve as ongoing weapons in a broader campaign of psychological warfare designed to maintain populations in states of fear, fragmentation, and dependency. And I'm not trying to say that every single shooter or killer was created by, was individually created by the Phoenix program, but what I'm saying is they seeded, this is what it means, they planted the seeds that they developed in that program, these sick and dark seeds into the fabric, let's call it the soil, to stay with the analogy here, of Western culture. They planted those seeds, and so it doesn't matter if each killer or shooter is an actual asset or not, because through the seeding, the geographic distribution, the media amplification, and seeding psychopathy worldwide, which is section 5 coming up right now, through doing that, it serves their purpose either way, whether someone's a direct asset or not. But if you read Program to Kill that I mentioned by David McGowan, you'll see that almost all of them were assets or patsies. Works out in the favor of the Tavistock and the other elites anyway. So let's keep going. The serial killers produced by that program serve as ongoing weapons in a broader campaign of psychological warfare designed to maintain populations in states of fear, fragmentation, and dependency. So wait, what am I doing here? I just got rid of my notes that I need. Okay, so here we go. We're now moving to section number 5. Seeding psychopathy worldwide, the global distribution network. The systematic export of trauma-based mind control techniques represents one of the most documented aspects of the broader social engineering agenda. Through networks of psychiatric institutions, academic research programs, and professional training initiatives, the techniques developed in programs like MKUltra and Phoenix were systematically distributed worldwide, creating a global structure for psychological manipulation. So we'll touch a little bit now on MKUltra, the development phase, 1953 to 1973. And you see the overlap with Phoenix and Vietnam and all this. Project MKUltra served as the research and development program for techniques later deployed through Phoenix and other operations. Officially terminated in 1973, MKUltra actually involved over 150 sub-projects conducted at more than 80 institutions, including universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. And if you would like to know more about that, there's a great channel called Flesh Simulator. And his associated connected channel, Flesh Emulator. But Flesh Simulator did a great couple of videos about MK Ultra, and he also did a video about called Serial Killing for Fun and Profit that covered one specific group related to what I'm talking about here. Just one specific group that was involved in. I'll just let you. I'll see if I remember. Let me make a note to link this in the notes here. Link Serial Kill Fun Profit in description. But it's Flesh. A shout out to Flesh Simulator and his amazing channel. I love all his videos. But watch that Serial Killing for Fun and Profit. It's a nice deep dive. Better than I could cover it. But let's keep going. Project MK Ultra served as the research and development program for techniques later deployed through Phoenix and other operations. Officially terminated in 1973, MK Ultra actually involved over 150 sub-projects, like I said, conducted at more than 80 institutions, including universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The program's scope was unprecedented in human history. Number one, research subjects. MK Ultra experiments were conducted on unwitting subjects, including CIA employees, military personnel, mental patients, prisoners, drug addicts, and prostitutes. So people who could not fight back, as one agency officer described them. You believe that? That's a direct quote. People who could not fight back. The program's scope was unprecedented in human history. Institutional network. Research was conducted at prestigious institutions, including Harvard University, Stanford University, Yale University, and numerous hospitals and psychiatric facilities. This created a professional network committed to trauma-based research methods. Technical development. MK Ultra developed systematic techniques for personality fragmentation through trauma, chemical manipulation of consciousness and awareness, hypnotic programming and suggestion, sensory deprivation and overstimulation, electroshock therapy for memory disruption, sexual abuse as a programming tool. Global distribution networks. The evidence shows that MK Ultra techniques were systematically distributed through several key mechanisms. Academic research programs. University-based research programs served as training centers where techniques were taught to students who then established similar programs worldwide. This created a self-replicating network of professionals committed to trauma-based methodologies. And it doesn't mean trauma healing, it means trauma inducing, okay? And some of them didn't even know that's what they're doing. They just were studying that, became interested in it, and then were trained and sent out to create their own. So this is still happening. There's chain reaction of research and students and teachings and ideologies and worldviews. And this is what I'm trying to disabuse you of, de-victimize you from, okay? Professional conferences and publications. Research findings were disseminated, through academic conferences and professional journals, ensuring that techniques spread throughout the psychiatric and psychological professions. International training programs. The CIA established training programs where personnel from allied nations learned MK Ultra techniques for implementation in their home countries. This created a global network of operatives capable of implementing psychological warfare programs. Pharmaceutical distribution. The drugs developed for MK Ultra research were systematically introduced into civilian psychiatric practice, creating chemical tools for consciousness manipulation. Next, the psychiatric establishment as distribution network. The global psychiatric establishment served as the primary distribution network for trauma-based control techniques. This involved several coordinated strategies. 1. Diagnostic expansion. The systematic expansion of psychiatric diagnostic categories created larger populations of individuals subject to psychiatric intervention. Do you understand this? This is so important for you to understand. I'm going to read that again. Diagnostic expansion. This was a deliberate strategy to disseminate trauma-based manipulation sold to you as healing, as therapy. Okay? It's so sick. The systematic expansion of psychiatric diagnostic categories created larger populations of individuals subject to psychiatric intervention, which is compulsive. This provided cover for implementing experimental techniques under the guise of legitimate treatment. Therapeutic methodology. Trauma-based techniques were integrated into standard therapeutic practice through professional training programs and treatment protocols. This ensured that individuals seeking help for psychological problems would be subjected to techniques originally developed for warfare applications. And what I'm saying, folks, if you're saying you have a chemical imbalance and all this crap, it's all fake. There was never a chemical imbalance. I can prove it. Look it up for yourself. Try to find one study. It's crazy, and people are defending their own their own imprisonment and constant traumatization by these institutions. It's systematic. It's built into the worldview of psychiatry and psychology, my friends. It's built into it. Okay. It might not be the fault of an individual working in that. One of my close relatives works in that field, but he's not individually responsible for these type of things, and in fact, he counters that worldview in the work that he actually does. But what I'm trying to say is, it's the roots of the whole thing come from this. Come from what I'm describing to you today. Okay. So again, this ensured that individuals seeking help for psychological problems would be subjected to techniques originally developed for warfare applications. Okay, my friends. So let's keep going. Institutional networks. Psychiatric hospitals and treatment facilities worldwide adopted methodologies developed through MKUltra research. This created a global infrastructure capable of implementing systematic psychological manipulation. And if you question it, then they tell you you're insane. Research collaboration. International research collaborations created formal networks linking psychiatric institutions worldwide. These networks facilitated the sharing of techniques, subjects, and research findings across national boundaries. So that's the section. This is the conclusion of the subsection, the psychiatric establishment as distribution network. Next subsection, creating programmed individuals worldwide. The evidence suggests that the global distribution of trauma-based techniques has created substantial populations of individuals whose personalities have been systematically programmed for specific purposes. This maybe gets a little bit out there, but stay with me. Number one, Manchurian candidates. MKUltra research aimed to create individuals who could be programmed to carry out specific actions while remaining unaware of their programming. Testimony from survivors and researchers suggests this capability was successfully developed and deployed. Number two, dissociative networks. Trauma-based programming creates individuals with multiple personality systems that can be activated by specific triggers. And this, you could question this, but there is documentation that this has been successfully employed. This creates networks of programmed individuals who could be activated for various purposes while maintaining normal surface personalities. Dig into the research yourself, my friends. It's dark. Cultural transmission. Programmed individuals serve as vectors for transmitting traumatic patterns throughout society. Through their interactions with family members, colleagues, and communities, they spread the psychological patterns created through systematic trauma. Institutional infiltration. Programmed individuals placed in key institutional positions can influence policy, practice, and cultural norms in ways that serve the broader social engineering agenda. This creates a feedback loop where institutions themselves become tools for psychological manipulation. The seeding of psychopathy worldwide represents a systematic program designed to create global populations more amenable to external control by fragmenting individual psychology and destroying traditional social bonds. This program aims to eliminate the psychological and cultural resources that traditionally enable human resistance to tyranny. So that's number 5. We're going to just do a quick recap. What do we got here? Compliance through pathology. We'll just touch on some of what we covered. Let's just, I want to add, this is like an addendum, the school system, compliance through pathology. Standardized education, well, it incorporates the MK Ultra and psychiatric trauma-based techniques. Standardized education primes children for submission. They have rigid curricula, secular evolution dogma, which is garbage, and anti-spiritual bias, particularly anti-Christian bias. Creative, spirited, or traumatized children are medicalized. So restlessness and sadness are recast as ADHD or depression, which then they say requires pharmaceutical, quote, correction. And forced drugging. Now, this comes from congressional findings, and I put links to these in my notes. PubMed, even like public research findings. Forced drugging. Parents have been threatened with loss of custody, criminal charges, and or medical neglect if they refuse psychiatric drugs for their children. School psychologists, social services, and state officials invoke chemical imbalance dogma, which there is no such thing as chemical imbalance in the brain. If it was, you wouldn't need psychiatry or psychology or drugs. You would need a neurosurgeon or nervous system expert doctor or some other kind of actual medical intervention. So school psychologists, social services, and state officials invoke chemical imbalance dogma to force medical compliance and drug compliance, but no lab tests, just speculative diagnoses. And these interventions target boys, minorities, and the poor most, creating a pipeline from schools to clinics and eventually prisons. And then they become part of the prison industrial complex as well. Thomas Zotz, I'm going to give a little bit of his analysis. Pharmacological child abuse. Thomas Zotz, that was his term for systematic drugging of kids for nonconformity, dumbing down the soul and spirit for convenience and social management. And then we'll touch on just a recap about the Project Phoenix. Vietnam CIA Phoenix program. Again, remember, over 81,000 neutralized. Tactics included psychological torture, terror raids, and chemical disorienting agents. Post-war, these trauma tactics boomeranged into Western police, schools, and psychiatric systems, normalizing enforced compliance. PTSD, rage, and social atomization directly linked to trauma as policy. And what Zotz and psychiatry, Zotz mentions about this in relation to psychiatry, rather than addressing root trauma, they're creating root trauma. Psychiatry pathologizes and medicates the fallout, never challenging the structure, inflicting widespread psychic harm. And then a little recap about MK Ultra, which is 150 sub-projects secretly tested: LSD, sensory deprivation, hypnosis, sexual abuse as tools for mind breaking at over 80 universities and hospitals. Congressional findings in 1977 showed compliance therapy research migrated into psychiatric handbooks, resulting in massive drug-based treatments for trauma and behavioral nonconformity. And the DSM's diagnostic expansion, children's tantrums, adolescent doubt, and cultural dislocation were rebranded as brain disease. Livelihood for Psych Pharma Alliance. The chemical imbalance myth, marketing slogan invented by Big Pharma, repeated in patient information, commercials, and therapy scripts. No blood, brain, or genetic marker exists for any chemical imbalance. I put the proof of this in the documentation. There's even congressional hearings about this. The APA, the FDA, and congressional testimony confirm claims of neurotransmitter deficits such as serotonin hypothesis or ADHD brain imbalance, etc., are scientifically baseless and a violation of informed consent. This is a legal statement. The APA, FDA, and congressional testimony confirm claims of neurotransmitter deficits or chemical imbalance are scientifically baseless and a violation of informed consent. Real world effects. This is real world effects of Project Phoenix, MK Ultra, and all the stuff I just mentioned in Section 5. U.S. antidepressant prescriptions up 400% since 1990s. Millions of kids medicated, often by coercion and threat. Thomas Saad's 1960s warnings have become confirmed. Normal suffering has become medicalized and drugged for profit and control. Suffering is normal. And one institution, for example, the Orthodox Church, knows how to teach you how to handle the normal suffering of everyday life. But of course, see how it's so important. You have to destroy the traditional structures. You have to destroy the traditional solutions, act like they never existed, pretend that psychology and psychiatry are this brand new, beautiful thing that's here to help people, when at its root from the beginning, it was created to destroy your sense of self, your community, and the traditional structures that kept us not only sane, but living a life of joy, where in the midst of the normal sufferings of life, we could experience social cohesion. We could rely on each other. And there's a deep joy that comes from helping others during their times of suffering and being helped during your time of suffering. Okay? That's what's being stolen. And it's replaced with fake suffering in the hell of the imagination. Let's keep going. So now we are, whoa. What happened to my other notes here? Whoa. Let's see. I keep saying, there we go. We're getting to section number 6 of 10. So stick with me. We're going to crank through this. And thank you for being here. Like I said, please leave a comment. Please like, share, and subscribe. Share this video with your friends. Share this video with your enemies. Share this video with your family. Get people over to the channel. And like I said, if you want, dive into the Radical Undoing work, the training that I offer through Summerland Academy, radicalundoing.com, the upcoming Radical Undoing 101 live group training adventure is going to be amazing. I stick with you through it all. And once, once we work together, I become available for the rest of my life, at least, to make sure that you stay free of this prison of the imagination. Okay. I'm available to everyone that I've ever worked with. You can reach me through all the means. They're all out there here on the channel. So anyway, let's keep going. Section number 6, the culture of fear, tension, and violence, manufacturing social anxiety. The systematic creation of fear-based social environments represents one of the most successful aspects of the broader psychological warfare agenda. Through coordinated manipulation of media, education, and social institutions, entire populations have been conditioned to exist in states of chronic anxiety, hypervigilance, and social fragmentation that make them susceptible to external control. Number 1, psychological operations and social control. My ears all clogged. Declassified documents reveal that psychological operations, or otherwise known as PSYOPs, have been systematically applied to civilian populations using techniques originally developed for military warfare. See a pattern here, folks? These operations aim to create what researchers termed learned helplessness, a psychological state where individuals believe they have no control over their circumstances and therefore submit to external authority. The PSYOPs approach involves several coordinated strategies. Information warfare, the systematic manipulation of information to create false perceptions of threat and instability. This includes amplifying coverage of violent crimes to create disproportionate fear, promoting catastrophic interpretations of social and environmental challenges. Sound familiar? Creating artificial crises that require authoritarian responses, suppressing information that would promote social confidence and resilience. Emotional manipulation, the deliberate triggering of emotional responses that bypass rational thought processes. Research shows that individuals in heightened emotional states are significantly more susceptible to persuasion and behavioral manipulation. Social fragmentation, the systematic breakdown of social bonds and community connections that traditionally provide psychological resilience. This creates isolated individuals who lack the social support necessary to resist external manipulation. The manufacturing of baseline anxiety. Research demonstrates that contemporary populations exist in states of chronic stress and anxiety that would have been considered pathological in previous generations. This represents the successful implementation of trauma-based social control on a population and global level, my friends. Media-induced trauma. Mass media consistently exposes audiences to traumatic content that creates secondary trauma responses. Studies show that individuals exposed to media violence exhibit the same physiological stress responses as direct victims of violence. This creates populations with trauma-based psychological profiles without direct traumatic experiences. You see what they did? You see how this works? Educational trauma. Educational systems have been systematically modified to create anxiety and learned helplessness rather than confidence and competence. This includes standardized testing that creates chronic performance anxiety, competitive environments that undermine cooperation and mutual support. There's nothing wrong with healthy competition, but when it's presented and packaged in this way, it's horrific. Curricula designed to promote guilt and shame about cultural identity. Sound familiar? Teaching methods that discourage independent thinking and promote blind conformity. Economic insecurity. Economic systems have been structured to create chronic insecurity and dependency. This includes employment structures that provide no long-term security, financial systems that create perpetual debt dependency, housing markets that prevent stable community formation, healthcare systems that create fear of financial catastrophe. Next, the weaponization of social issues. Evidence shows that social movements and cultural conflicts have been systematically manipulated to create division and prevent unified resistance to the broader control agenda. This follows the classic strategy of divide and conquer applied through sophisticated psychological manipulation. Identity politics. The promotion of competing identity categories serves to fragment populations that might otherwise unite around common interests. Rather than addressing systemic issues, energy is diverted into conflicts between different demographic groups. Artificial polarization. Media and educational institutions systematically promote extreme positions while suppressing moderate viewpoints. This creates artificial polarization that prevents rational discussion and compromise. Controlled opposition. Many apparently opposing movements are actually controlled by the same interests, creating the illusion of choice while ensuring that all options serve the broader control agenda. Next, violence as social programming. The systematic promotion of violence in entertainment media serves multiple psychological warfare objectives. Desensitization. Constant exposure to violent imagery creates psychological numbing that reduces empathy and moral sensitivity. This makes populations more accepting of violence as a social control mechanism. Trauma programming. Exposure to violent media creates trauma responses that fragment psychological function. This makes individuals more susceptible to dissociation and external programming. Behavior modeling. Media violence provides behavioral templates that influence real-world actions. This creates populations more likely to engage in violent behavior when triggered by appropriate stimuli. Fear conditioning. Violent media creates chronic fear responses that promote submission to authority figures who promise protection. The culture of fear and violence represents a systematic program designed to create populations psychologically prepared for authoritarian control. By maintaining individuals in states of chronic stress and social fragmentation, this program eliminates the psychological resources necessary for effective resistance. Let's do a little bit of a recap of section number 6. The culture of fear, anxiety as policy, profit, and control. Military psychological operations manuals inform media news cycles, perpetual crisis, disaster, and controversy. I think I'm slipping off the off the video here. Let's go like this. There we go. Let me come up. Let me put the chair up a little bit. There we go. It's better. Oh, chronic societal stress equals rates of higher medication acceptance, policy compliance and surrender to unaccountable authority. Empirical results. 20% or more of U.S. adults use prescription psych drugs. Suicide up 30% in 2 decades. Youth self-injury has at least tripled. Psychiatric framing transforms justified anxiety over a collapsed culture into personal disorder. Another market for drugs and therapies. And we also covered the digital dissociation, the final frontier of control. Social tech and app industries employ Tavistock and MKUltra inspired behavioral science to maximize eye time, reduce attention span, and foster dependency. Tech firms now offer digital mental health assessments. So fucking ridiculous, man. Sorry for my language. Automating the process of labeling and drugging through remote screens. They're doing it automatically now. You understand? They're doing it now. They're doing it automatically through apps. This was MKUltra. Okay, keep going. Masat's perspective, if he saw what they're capable, he would. Okay, passive digital dependency is the new soma, endorsed by institutions that profit when authentic community and embodied living collapse. It gets even crazier. I'm going to tie this all together. You're going to see how it all comes back together here. Okay, and then the beautiful thing is I have the solutions for you. I have the solutions for you. Okay. Section number 7. Oh, let me let the kitties in here. Oh, kitties. There we go. Okay. Section number 7, the virtual hell. Escaping into abstraction. Let me close the window here. It's getting cold. Okay. Section number 7, the virtual hell. Escaping into abstraction. Mental dissociation as population control. The systematic promotion of mental escapism, fantasy. Kitty, get out of here. Get off there. The systematic promotion of mental escapism, fantasy, and abstract thinking represents a sophisticated form of psychological warfare designed to prevent populations from engaging. Get off there. Nah, hold on. Say hi to the live stream. Hello. Okay. The virtual hell, escaping into abstraction. No. Nah. Stay over there. No, you got it. No, you got to chill. I have to use MKUltra mind control on my cats. Just chill. You can be here, but not over here. Yeah, just hang out and chill. Okay. So, the systematic promotion of mental escapism, fantasy, and abstract thinking represents a sophisticated form of psychological warfare designed to prevent populations from engaging with concrete reality. Through education, entertainment, and therapeutic culture, which you thought was helpful, it's not. I'm telling you it's not. I've been saying this for over 10 years now. The entire population has been conditioned to retreat into mental abstractions rather than confronting the actual source of your struggles and your problems. You've got to get this point, okay? I'm going to repeat this. You need to know, you need to burn this into your awareness. The systematic promotion of mental escapism, fantasy, and abstract thinking represents a sophisticated form of psychological warfare designed to prevent you from engaging with concrete reality, including your own body. They do this with diagnostics, okay? Instead of get rid of the word anxiety and depression, for example, and force yourself to say, what am I actually experiencing? What's going on? Oh man, I feel tension in my throat, or I feel tight in my chest. I feel like I'm going to cry, or I feel like I want to scream. Okay, those are real things. But this term anxiety is not a real thing, or depression. These are boxes, these are categories. These are psychological warfare techniques deliberately designed to fuck your mind. Okay? Get this into your head. So I'm going to read it one more time, especially for any of you with fractured, for what do you call it? With any of you with fractured attention spans. The systematic promotion of mental escapism, fantasy, and abstract thinking represents a sophisticated form of psychological warfare designed to prevent populations from engaging with concrete reality. Through education, entertainment, and therapeutic culture, Oh, I'm going to the retreat. Oh, I'm going to the meditation. I'm going to India. I'm going to Goa. Don't go to Goa. Don't go to Goa now. Anyway, listen to the band Alabama 3. They're awesome. Anyway, shout out to A3. So, therapeutic culture. Entire populations have been conditioned to retreat into mental abstractions, the hell of the mind, the hellish snow globe of the imagination, rather than confronting the actual sources of their problems, which are right here, right in your body, right in your community. Go make dinner for your neighbor. Go forgive your local enemies. Hang out with them. Share some money. Share food. Talk to the neighbors. Tap the old lady on the back, like comfort the old woman who looks sad and depressed sitting at the bus stop. Okay, help someone walk up some steps. Buy some groceries for a homeless guy. Whatever. Okay, it's like if you deal with your body, and then your house, okay, and then your local, the people around you, people with you, and in your life, all of them, your local community, you will be okay, even when you're not okay. Okay. And then when you're struggling, you're suffering, they're going to help you the same way. That's how you solve so-called mental health. Mental illness does not exist. It's a category error. And the funny thing is, it's a contradiction, because if mental health actually existed, mental illness, does not exist. Mental illness does not exist. It's a category error. And the funny thing is, if it did actually exist, it would still undermine the need for, it would undermine the existence and the foundation of psychiatry, because regular medical doctors would then be the ones dealing with the actual illness, not pseudoscience of psychiatry. Like I said, I'm not blaming the individuals for this. This is systemic, okay? Even Thomas Satz was a psychiatrist, and he did a lot to work against compulsive treatment. And you read The Myth of Mental Illness, for example. Let's keep going. It gets a little darker here, too. So, again, we're in section number 7, the virtual hell, escaping into abstraction, mental dissociation as population control. And now we're at psychology of dissociation. Dissociation, which is the psychological separation from immediate experience, serves as a primary mechanism of social control. When individuals cannot tolerate their actual circumstances, they retreat into mental abstractions that provide temporary relief while preventing effective action. Research documents several forms of systematic dissociation promotion. Educational abstraction. Education systems have been systematically modified to emphasize abstract theoretical knowledge over concrete practical skills. This creates individuals who are comfortable with intellectual concepts but incapable of real-world action. Digital immersion. Technology systems have been designed to create addictive patterns that substitute virtual engagement for real-world relationships and activities. This serves multiple control functions, such as A, isolating individuals from supportive communities. B, creating dependency on technological systems. C, providing mechanisms for surveillance and behavioral modification. And D, generating revenue streams that fund further control mechanisms. Therapeutic culture. The proliferation of therapeutic approaches and psychological services creates what researchers term therapeutic dependency. The belief that problems require professional intervention rather than individual or community action. The proliferation of distraction technologies. Evidence shows that entertainment and information technologies have been systematically designed to create addictive patterns that prevent sustained attention and deep thinking. This follows research originally conducted for MKUltra and related programs on methods for disrupting cognitive functioning. Attention fragmentation. Modern media systems are designed to fragment attention spans and prevent sustained focus. This makes individuals incapable of the sustained thought necessary for understanding complex problems or developing effective solutions. Dopamine manipulation. Entertainment and social media systems exploit neurochemical reward systems to create addictive patterns. This creates a psychological dependency that can be manipulated for behavioral control. Information overload. The systematic creation of information excess serves to paralyze decision-making and promote passive consumption rather than active engagement. And then we get to fantasy as social control. The promotion of fantasy and escapist thinking serves multiple social control functions, such as substitute satisfaction. Fantasy experiences provide psychological satisfaction that reduces motivation for real-world action. Individuals who experience virtual success or adventure are less likely to pursue actual achievement or challenge existing circumstances. Reality avoidance. Fantasy systems provide alternative interpretations of experience that prevent individuals from accurately assessing their circumstances. This makes them less capable of effective resistance or self-protection. Behavioral programming. Fantasy content provides behavioral models that influence real-world actions in ways that serve control agendas. This includes promoting consumerism, sexual dysfunction, violence, and political passivity. Next, the academic intellectual complex as distraction system. Higher education and intellectual culture have been systematically transformed to promote abstract thinking that disconnects individuals from practical reality. This serves several control functions. Credentialism. The requirement for academic credentials for basic social participation creates dependency on educational institutions controlled by the social engineering establishment. Theoretical complexity. Academic disciplines have been systematically made more complex and abstract, requiring specialized training that isolates experts from common understanding. This creates professional classes dependent on institutional support and less capable of independent thought. Critical theory as distraction. Academic critical theory provides the illusion of rebellious thought while actually serving establishment interests. Students believe they are challenging authority while actually being trained to implement social engineering agendas. Imagine that. 1960s revolution, anyone? Civil rights movement, anyone? Political activism as managed opposition. Political movements and activism have been systematically channeled into forms that serve establishment interests while providing participants with the illusion of meaningful action. The psychological services industry. The massive expansion of psychological and therapeutic services represents a systematic effort to medicalize normal human responses to abnormal circumstances. This serves multiple control functions. Problem redefinition. Social and political problems are redefined as individual psychological issues requiring professional treatment. How handy is that? Where do we go here? This prevents collective action and promotes individual dependency. Pharmaceutical control. Psychological services provide delivery systems for psychiatric medications that alter brain function and behavior. This creates biochemical dependency and reduces capacity for independent thought and action. Behavioral modification. Therapeutic interventions provide opportunities for systematic behavioral modification using techniques originally designed for warfare applications. Where are we at here? Data collection. Psychological services provide extensive data collection opportunities that serve surveillance and social control functions. The virtual hell of mental abstraction represents a sophisticated form of psychological prison that provides the illusion of freedom while preventing effective resistance to social control. By promoting dissociation from concrete reality, this system ensures that populations remain psychologically incapable of the sustained attention and coordinated action necessary to challenge existing power structures. Let's see if we got a little recap there. Digital dissociation, which I just mentioned already. Yeah, we'll save the rest. Okay, so of that, I'm not going to do a full recap of that, but that was section number 7. It's so crazy if you put all this together. I hope you've been watching the whole thing. And if you haven't, go back and watch the whole thing later and take notes along the way if you want. The virtual hell, this has been section number 7, the virtual hell, escaping into abstraction, mental dissociation as population control. And I hope you're starting to see this is all a deliberate thing that strategy that we've all been subjected to. And this is what the radical undoing undoes, because all this shit is stored in the chronic tensions in the body, which prevent you from feeling fully alive and prevent you from dealing concretely with what's actually going on. And so you're solving fake problems installed into your mind through navigating fake diagnostic systems, and then being subject to further traumatization through all the personal development, self-help, self-growth. And then again, not the individuals promoting those things. They're not witting participants in these programs. This is why it's so deep and dark. But you're going to find as we get into section number 8 here. Oops, hold on here. As we get into section number 8, let's see here. Okay. You're going to find out as we get into section number 8 how all the New Age stuff, the mysticism, the fake mysticism, the searches, the endless seeking, personal development, self-help, and all that stuff. Like I said, not the individuals doing it think they're doing a good thing. Okay, this is how deep the programming goes. They think they're doing something good and being helpful to people, but they're not, because they're not dealing with the root cause of what's going on. So they end up being unwitting, participants in messing everybody up even further and keeping them trapped in the camp of concentration on the virtual hell of the snow globe of the imagination. Section 8, a psyop of distraction, psychology's red herrings, endless categorization as mental trap. The systematic proliferation. Hey, cat, stop that. Chill out. Don't do that. Don't destroy things. Come on. Chill out. Stay right there. The systematic proliferation of psychological typologies, personality systems, and diagnostic categories. Hey, I'm going to put you outside. Put you out of the room if you do that. Stop digging. Stop tearing apart the sheets, okay? Just lay down and chill out. Okay, let's get into number 8, section number 8. Don't do it, kitty. Don't do it. The systematic proliferation of psychological typologies, personality systems. So this includes like human design, which we've also torn apart, systematically destroyed earlier on live streams on this channel. If you go into the live tab, you'll find that. Human design, astrology, all this just utter madness. No, get out of there. Hey, no, get off of there. No. Okay. Go ahead. You can lay on the printer. No, see, it messes up my camera. This is why you're not allowed in the room sometimes. I want you to remember this. Lay down. Stay over there and lay down. Okay, good kitty. So, okay. Sorry for the cat intervention here. That's right. Stay right there. That's good. Section 8, like I said, a psyop of distraction. And it's kind of funny. I got distracted by my cat running the psyop on me here. I'm going to just give this to you again. The systematic proliferation of psychological typologies, personality systems, and diagnostic categories represents one of the most successful distraction operations in human history, my friends. Rather than addressing the systematic sources of psychological distress, entire populations have been conditioned to invest enormous amounts of time and energy in endless self-categorization that serves to fragment attention and prevent meaningful action. The psychology industry as social control mechanism. The dramatic expansion of psychology as a professional discipline coincides precisely with the implementation of systematic social engineering programs. What do you know? This correlation suggests that psychology serves primarily as a delivery system for social control rather than genuine healing or human development. Now, evidence for this interpretation includes diagnostic expansion. The systematic expansion of psychological diagnostic categories has created classifications for virtually every human behavior and emotional response. So what this has done, this medicalizes normal human reactions to abnormal circumstances, which they are also responsible for creating the abnormal circumstances, and creates the impression that individual pathology rather than social conditions are responsible for widespread distress. Treatment dependency. Psychological treatment systems are designed to create long-term dependency rather than resolution of problems. This generates revenue streams while ensuring that individuals remain engaged with control systems rather than developing independent coping strategies. Behavioral modification. Psychological interventions consistently employ techniques originally developed for warfare applications. This suggests that the primary purpose is behavioral control rather than genuine therapeutic benefit. And data collection. Psychological services provide extensive opportunities for data collection and analysis that serve surveillance and social control functions. Next, the proliferation of typology systems. This is the bane of my existence. Contemporary culture has been systematically flooded with personality typology systems that provide the illusion, and none of you watching, don't come and tell me, oh, but the Enneagram is good, all the rest, oh, but the human design really helped me, or oh, astrology, blah, 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 or the horoscope, this or that, or the get out of here, or Myers-Briggs, get out of here. No one needs it. You don't need that. You don't need to do the categories, okay? Yeah, it might give you the temporary illusion of helping you because you instead of facing what's actually going on in yourself and in your life, you started, they're using the classic cold reading trick on you, okay? Anyway, too much to get into here. I cover that in the Art of NGF Mentalism workshop, which I can't remember if I still have that. I might put it up as part of a course on the YouTube channel here. But if you want a copy of that, just write me. Get in touch with me. The Art of NGF Mentalism workshop. Let me know. Oh, let's keep going. I'll repeat that. Contemporary culture has been systematically flooded with personality typology systems that, and don't tell me about Jung or even Reich type. You don't need it. It's garbage, garbage, garbage. Okay. The solutions are so much simpler than that. So contemporary culture has been systematically flooded with personality typology systems that provide the illusion of self-understanding. Let me remind you, please subscribe, like, and comment here. It helps really boost the channel. Share it, tell your friends, enemies, and family about this. Everyone needs to see it. Oh, okay. I'm going to give it to you one more time. Contemporary culture has been systematically flooded with personality typology systems that provide the illusion of self-understanding while actually serving as distraction mechanisms. Number one, corporate typologies. Systems like Myers-Briggs, DISC, and Enneagram are extensively promoted in workplace environments. These systems create artificial categories that fragment worker solidarity, provide justifications for workplace hierarchy and inequality, consume enormous amounts of time and energy that could be used for productive activity, and also generate revenue streams for consulting and training industries. Spiritual typologies. New Age and alternative spiritual systems promote endless categorization through astrology, numerology, chakra systems, and similar frameworks. These systems redirect spiritual seeking away from traditional religious practice, create dependency on professional services and commercial products, promote individualistic rather than community-based development, and provide alternative authority structures that compete with traditional cultural cohesion and social cohesion. Academic typologies. Educational institutions promote various psychological and sociological categorization systems that fragment social identity. This includes identity politics categories that divide potential allies, academic specialization that prevents comprehensive understanding, research methodologies that fragment knowledge into disconnected pieces, and theoretical frameworks that substitute abstract analysis for practical action. And here we go. The self-help industrial complex. Commodified solutions. Sorry for grab the mic cable. Commodified solutions. Self-help systems consistently promote commercial products and services as solutions to problems that actually require social or political change. This generates revenue while ensuring the problems persist. Individualistic focus. Self-help promotes the ideology that all problems are individual rather than systemic, preventing collective action and mutual support. Endless process. Self-help systems are designed to create ongoing dependency rather than actual problem resolution. This ensures continued revenue while preventing participants from developing independent capabilities. Substitute achievement. Self-help provides the psychological satisfaction of working on problems without requiring actual change or challenge to your existing circumstances. Psychological assessment as behavioral control. The systematic promotion of psychological testing and assessment serves multiple social control functions. Behavioral prediction. Psychological assessments provide data for predicting and influencing individual behavior. This information can be used for employment screening, marketing targeting, and political manipulation. Social sorting. Assessment systems provide justifications for social hierarchy and inequality by attributing differences in outcomes to individual psychological characteristics rather than systemic factors. Therapeutic intervention. Assessment results provide justifications for therapeutic interventions that modify behavior according to social control objectives. Identity manipulation. Assessment results influence self-perception and behavior in ways that serve control agendas. The distraction function. The most significant aspect of psychological categorization systems is their function as distraction mechanisms that prevent attention to actual sources of problems. Energy diversion. Individuals invest enormous amounts of time and energy in self-analysis and categorization that can be used for practical problem solving or collective action. False understanding. Categorization systems provide the illusion of understanding while actually preventing genuine insight into personal or social dynamics. Social fragmentation. Categorization systems create artificial divisions between individuals who might otherwise recognize common interests and work together. Authority dependency. Categorization systems create dependency on professional experts who interpret and apply the systems, preventing independent thinking and action. The psychology industry's red herrings represent a sophisticated distraction operation designed to prevent populations from recognizing and addressing the systematic sources of their distress. By promoting endless self-categorization and analysis, this system ensures that human energy is consumed in mental activity that serves control agendas while preventing effective resistance to social engineering programs. So that was section number 8. Which was, just to let you recap, it's an important section, a psyop of distraction, psychology's red herrings, endless categorization as mental trap. Let's see if we got a little bit. The maze of classifications, just a little recap. Labels as chains. So to recap a little bit, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, and endless diagnoses reinforce external management and never real self-knowledge. The DSM-5 diseases are bureaucratically voted in and out of existence, but not actually discovered in the real world. Personality and gender fluidity concepts, weaponized into policy, make everyone perpetually diagnosable and thus perpetually manageable. The more labels, the less agency. So let's go ahead and go to section number 9. We're almost done. Thanks for sticking with me, folks. I know, if you had to have your attention span fractured, this might be difficult, but I hope that you're finding it as fascinating as I am. The roots of this current psychological warfare that you have been attacked by. All of us have been subject to this without fail. Everyone. Section number 9, wreck the universal. Cultural warfare and category collapse. The systematic attack on universal categories and shared objective reality represents the most sophisticated aspect of the social engineering agenda. By destroying common frameworks for understanding truth, morality, and human nature, what did I do here? Okay, I see. This program aims to create populations incapable of coordinated resistance and susceptible to arbitrary authority. Deconstruction strategy. Academic and cultural institutions have systematically promoted philosophical frameworks that undermine confidence in objective reality and universal principles. This follows a coordinated strategy documented in Frankfurt School writings and related social engineering programs. You see how this circles back around from the beginning? The deconstruction approach involves several coordinated attacks. Number one, epistemological. I can normally say that. I'll take a sip of tea here. So the deconstruction strategy, part one. Epistemological relativism. The promotion of philosophical positions that deny the possibility of objective knowledge. Now, I want to share something with you just briefly. We'll get into this in other videos too. And I have, if you watch the videos with Posh about worldviews, we get into this more. But if you say the statement, there is no truth, or truth is relative, you are immediately in a self-refuting contradiction. If you say there is no truth, I just ask you, oh, is that statement true? Okay, if you say truth is subjective, you could say, oh, is truth always subjective? You see how each of those statements relies on and presupposes the existence of an absolute truth, well, pretending that it doesn't exist. But it's just a little tip of the iceberg for you. Think of some food for thought. Oh, let's keep going. This creates populations unable to distinguish between truth and falsehood, making them susceptible to manipulation by anyone who claims authority. Moral relativism. The systematic attack on universal moral principles in favor of situational ethics and cultural relativism. This eliminates the moral frameworks necessary for resisting actual tyranny and evil. Linguistic manipulation. The systematic redefinition. I'm being linguistically manipulated. The systematic redefinition of key terms to serve ideological objectives. This creates confusion and prevents clear communication about important issues. Historical revisionism. The systematic reinterpretation of historical events to serve contemporary ideological perspectives. This eliminates the historical knowledge necessary for recognizing recurring patterns of tyranny and resistance. Hey, Caddy. The gender and sexuality agenda. The systematic promotion of gender ideology and sexual confusion represents a particularly effective attack on universal categories. Biological denial. The promotion of theories that deny biological reality in favor of subjective identity claims. This attacks the most basic category of human identity and creates populations disconnected from physical reality. Family destruction. The systematic redefinition of family structures serves to eliminate the primary source of social stability and cultural transmission. This creates populations dependent on institutional support and more susceptible to social control. And to add to that, social control by people who do not have your best interests in mind, people who think of the whole planet as a psychiatric hospital, and each of you and myself included as their patients that they can do with as they please. All in the name of eliminating social injustice. Can you believe it? That's what the lengths they're willing to go. They're going to end social injustice by killing all of us. They're going to end our suffering by lobotomizing us all. Childhood sexualization. The systematic exposure of children to sexual content and concepts serves to fragment psychological development and create trauma-based personality structures. This provides adults more susceptible to external manipulation and control. Reproductive control. The promotion of antinatalist ideologies and practices serves to reduce population and eliminate the intergenerational bonds that provide social continuity. That's huge. I could do a long video on each of these points, okay? And you can find information out there about this, but let's keep going. It's so crazy when you see it all, how it all connects, okay? And the point isn't to gather information and see how stuff connects. That's what we're doing here right now. The ultimate point. The ultimate point is to go from being fractured back to whole again. And undoing is one step in that direction. Orthodoxy is another step. And each of those support one another. Oh, here we go. The progressive movement as a cultural weapon. Evidence suggests that progressive political movements have been systematically manipulated to serve social engineering objectives rather than genuine reform. Manufactured issues. Many contemporary progressive causes address artificial problems created by the same interests that propose solutions. This creates the illusion of grassroots activism, while actually implementing predetermined agendas. Controlled opposition. Progressive movements are systematically infiltrated and directed to serve establishment interests. This provides outlets for dissent while ensuring that opposition energy serves control agendas. Identity fragmentation. Progressive politics consistently promotes identity categories that fragment potential coalitions and prevent unified resistance. Rather than uniting around common interests and real-world connections and interdependency, groups are taught to compete for victim status and institutional recognition. Authoritarian methods. Progressive movements consistently employ authoritarian methods that accustom populations to censorship, surveillance, and political persecution. This creates the institutional infrastructure necessary for broader social control. Like I said, please, folks, if you're watching this, please just put a comment in the live chat, even if it's just say hello. Please like the video and do what you can to help me get this information out there. Thank you. I appreciate you. And if you disagree too, put that in the comments. If you have questions about any of this stuff or comments, put them in the comments. Thank you. Authoritarian methods. Progressive movements consistently employ authoritarian methods that accustom populations to censorship, surveillance, and political persecution. This creates institutional infrastructure necessary for broader social control. The attack on Western civilization. The systematic demonization of Western cultural achievements serves multiple social engineering objectives. Number one, cultural demoralization. The constant criticism of Western achievements creates populations ashamed of their cultural heritage and therefore willing to accept replacement systems. Number two, historical amnesia. The systematic suppression of knowledge about Western contributions to human development eliminates the cultural resources necessary for resisting cultural destruction. Number three, civilizational suicide. The promotion of ideologies that encourage Western populations to welcome their own demographic and cultural replacement. Number four, institutional capture. The systematic infiltration of Western institutions with individuals committed to their destruction creates internal mechanisms for cultural sabotage. Next, the creation of artificial categories. The systematic creation of new identity categories serves to fragment populations and prevent unified resistance and just social cohesion generally. Victim hierarchies. The creation of competing victim categories ensures that social energy is consumed in intergroup conflict rather than challenging actual and fixing and working on actual problems in your local community. Professional classes. The creation of specialized professional categories dependent on institutional support prevents the development of independent cultural leadership. Consumer segments. The systematic division of populations into marketing demographics serves commercial objectives while preventing the development of shared cultural identity. Political tribes. The creation of artificial political divisions ensures that populations remain divided and unable to recognize common interests. The destruction of shared reality. The ultimate objective of category collapse is the elimination of shared frameworks for understanding reality, or let's call it the elimination of a coherent worldview. Truth relativism. The promotion of theories that deny objective truth makes populations incapable of distinguishing between reality and propaganda. Moral nihilism. The systematic attack on moral frameworks eliminates the ethical resources necessary for resisting evil and tyranny, as I mentioned before. Cultural atomization. The destruction of shared cultural references eliminates the common understanding necessary for social cooperation and resistance. Institutional legitimacy. The systematic attack on traditional institutions eliminates the resources necessary for maintaining civilization. Literally, if people don't start having babies in Western nations, you're going to eliminate the culture entirely. Think about it. It takes only a few generations without the birth rate being at replacement or above. Things are going to get real crazy. So the assault on universal categories represents the most fundamental attack on human civilization itself. By destroying the conceptual frameworks necessary for shared understanding and coordinated action, this program aims to create populations incapable of effective resistance to arbitrary authority and systematic exploitation. And finally, we've arrived at number 10. So we're almost finished here, folks. Oh, let me grab one more thing. Just my other notes here. Put these here. Okay. Oh, let me do a little recap of that. So recap from part 9, collapse of the universal, the logos, under attack. Truth, meaning, gender, and culture are atomized by postmodern policy and pharmaceutical contract. Orthodox Christianity's concept of logos, objective divine reason, alone resists the reduction of order to category and treatable complaint. A society that no longer believes in knowable reality is a society surrendered to the rule of experts, so-called therapists, and technocrats. So now we get to the final section before the conclusion, which is section number 10, the escape plan, which is the Summerland Academy. But I'm also going to give you things you can do immediately here today. Yes, I do have paid programs, but I also have an insane amount of free material out here online. You can reach out to me too. And I provide endless amounts of resources. Basically just some very simple exercises you can begin with right away. But I'm going to give you a long list of aspects that make up the escape plan to here. Okay. So you can immediately start to take action to defrag your mind. Hopefully this video has gone a long way to helping understand how things got this way. None of it was by accident, and it wasn't your fault. The escape plan: undo, return, confront, and reclaim your human agency. Despite the comprehensive nature of the social engineering programs that we've gone through in this entire video, human beings possess inherent capacities for resistance that will never be able to be entirely eliminated. The escape plan involves recognizing these inherent capacities and systematically developing them to restore individual and collective agency. Understanding the programming. The first step in escape involves recognizing the systematic nature of psychological manipulation and social engineering, which is why I made this video. Pattern recognition. Learn to identify the consistent patterns of manipulation across all different domains. This includes recognizing how apparently different problems often serve the same control agenda. Historical context. Understanding the historical development of social engineering programs provides perspective on current circumstances and reveals that present conditions are not natural or inevitable. Psychological awareness. Develop understanding of psychological manipulation techniques. Developing an understanding of those provides protection against their effects. This includes recognizing emotional triggers, logical fallacies, and social pressure tactics. So study the logical fallacies. Media literacy. Learning to critically analyze media content and information sources provides protection against propaganda and behavioral and emotional manipulation. Reclaiming physical reality, or as they say, touch grass. The systematic promotion of mental abstraction and dissociation requires deliberate efforts to reconnect with physical awareness. Physical awareness. There's a new word. We got to get you back to physical awareness. No, physical reality. I like the term awareness. It's like let's make a note of that. Physical awareness. Body awareness, developing conscious connection to physical sensations, breathing, and embodied experience. This provides grounding that counters dissociative programming and emotional manipulation. Because, of course, when your mind is in the same place as your body, it's very difficult for you to be fragmented. Okay? Your mind will fight you on this, but all of the techniques, all the trainings that I teach through the Summerland Academy, both in the free and the paid programs, are designed to defrag your mind. Undo the effects of all this cultural programming, all this garbage, and bring you back home to the body, bring you back home to the awareness, the actuality in which we live and dwell, and reconnect you with yourself, the people around you, your local community, the ground, the water, the river, the grass, the trees, the concrete, everything that's tangible and right here now. So, Body awareness, like I said, provides grounding that counters the dissociative programming and emotional manipulation. Practical skills. Learning concrete practical skills provides confidence and independence that counters learned helplessness and professional dependency. This includes basic survival skills, traditional crafts, and practical problem-solving abilities. Direct experience. Prioritizing direct experience over mediated information provides accurate feedback about reality and counters propaganda and virtual manipulation. Physical health. Maintaining physical health and fitness provides the energy and resilience necessary for sustained resistance to social pressure and manipulation. Developing psychological resilience. Escaping psychological programming requires developing the mental and emotional resources necessary for independent thought and action. Critical thinking. Developing systematic approaches to analyzing information and making decisions. This includes logical reasoning, evidence evaluation, and recognition of cognitive biases and emotional manipulation. Now, this stuff might sound complicated, but like I said, we deal with all of this in the Summerland Academy and Radical Undoing training, bit by bit, day by day, moment by moment, and you can experience some relief almost immediately. Just use the videos in the playlist here. Use the face stretches, use the shoulders to ears technique, use the flops. There's a playlist called Self, which stands for stretch the face, elevate the shoulders, the laughing breath, and the flops. Do those 4 exercises every morning and every night. It's going to absolutely blow your mind, defrag you, and bring you back. You can also try the silent presence exercise, or what I call the fake meditation. All of this is available for free here on the channel. Okay. If you like that stuff, you like me, you want to work together, then I do really deep work where we have really great connections online together, and then also in-person workshops where we can go into all kinds of fun, creative techniques, adventures in the world, cognitive experiments, written exercises, all meant to restore you back to a sense of wholeness and awareness of what's actually going on inside and around you, instead of being subject to the hell of the snow globe of the imagination, the snow globe of the imagination. Emotional regulation, learning to manage emotional responses to maintain clear thinking under pressure. This includes techniques for managing anxiety, anger, and other emotions. And I think you can eliminate these things in a certain sense, or eliminate your reactivity to them. You can raise your frustration and anxiety tolerance with systematic radical undoing work over, 6 months to a year, 2 years or so. So regulating anxiety, anger, and other emotions that are normally exploited for manipulation. If you can trigger a person to anger, if a person can be easily triggered, they can be very easily controlled. Value clarification, developing clear personal values and developing clear values and principles provides guidance for decision making and resistance to social pressure. Live by your code. Live by a code. Watch the movie Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. Or look at how read some lives of Orthodox saints. Read the life of St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. Read the life of Father Seraphim Rose. Read the story about Elder Pavel, who said, "Thank God for the prison camp." Read the story of St. Gabriel of Tbilisi, of Georgia. And see, living by a particular code makes you essentially impossible to manipulate and control. Identify meaningful purposes and goals, which will provide you motivation for sustained effort and resistance to distractions and manipulation. That's purpose development. Build actual social networks. I'm creating new words tonight. The systematic fragmentation of social connections requires deliberate efforts to build supportive communities. Local relationships, as I mentioned before. Develop relationships with your neighbors and community members and provide mutual support and resources for practical problem solving. Doesn't that just sound amazing? Do it. Get out and do it. It used to be the norm. Skill sharing networks. Participating in networks where people share practical skills and resources reduces dependency on commercial and professional services. Study groups, forming groups focused on understanding social and political issues, which I don't know, I put this in there, but whatever kind of study group, provides collective intelligence and mutual support for learning and action. Mutual aid networks. Kitty, I told you no. What are you doing? You don't listen? Why don't you listen? I need to do behavior manipulation on my cat. Stay up there. I'm going to MK Ultra you. Okay, let's keep going. Where are we at? There's a great album. I just discovered this the other day. How funny that this popped up. But I used to listen to this band, a really great band, Joan of Arc, and the same guy, Mike Kinsella, who was in that band, which is really kind of strange, but some beautiful stuff in my opinion. Was also in the band called Cap and Jazz, which was like this screamo band that I really enjoyed. And so there was this Joan of Arc Presents. I think it was released in 2010. But the album is called Don't Mind Control. I love it. Don't Mind Control. So shout out to Mike Kinsella and Joan of Arc. The band, I mean, not the actual person. So here we go. Oh, where were we at? Yeah, mutual aid networks. Oh, no, goodbye. Get out of here. Developing systems for mutual assistance during emergencies and difficulties provides alternatives to institutional dependency. Spiritual practice and cultural recovery. Recovering authentic. Can tell I'm live streaming for a little too long right now. Let's get through this. We got like 2 pages left. Recovering authentic spiritual practice and cultural knowledge provides the deepest resources for resistance. Traditional spirituality, which, let's face it, is Eastern Orthodoxy. Engaging with traditional spiritual practices. Go to Divine Liturgy, folks. Check it out. Come and see. Engaging with traditional spiritual practices provides connection to transcendent values and sources of meaning that cannot be manipulated by social engineering. Cultural heritage. Learning about authentic cultural heritage provides identity and values that counter artificial identity categories and consumer culture. Contemplative practice. Developing contemplative practice, such as prayer and contemplation and reflective reading, provides inner resources for maintaining perspective and purpose. Sacred community. Participating in authentic religious community provides social support and shared values that counter individualistic manipulation. But just make sure it's a sacred community or a religion that has a coherent worldview. Practical resistance strategies. Implementing practical strategies for resisting social engineering requires coordinated individual and collective action. Economic independence. Developing economic independence through alternative economic systems. That's not exactly possible most of the time, but it is I've seen it work in small situations like Montana. I think in Billings, they had, funny that the name is Billings. They had like a local currency that you could sort of like kind of like a barter system, but with an actual currency, so you didn't have to do one-to-one bartering. But there's ways people have done this. I think maybe in Colorado and some places too. It's just too bad it gets associated with this like hippy dippy new age crap. So let's keep going. Countered financial control systems. Bitcoin is somewhat one of these ways is crypto stuff. Anyway, information independence. Developing independent information sources and communication networks provides alternatives to mainstream media and social media manipulation. Well, like talk to your neighbors. Whoa. Talk to my neighbors. Oh my God. Why? If you feel afraid of the people around you and your neighbors, you're afraid to make phone calls, even this kind of stuff, that's also by design. Okay. So get in touch with people, do phone calls. Come on. Do phone calls. Talk to your neighbors. Reach out to people. Make real contact with everybody, okay? Let's see. Education alternatives. Creating alternative educational systems or homeschooling or group homeschooling programs for children provides protection against systematic indoctrination and behavioral programming. Political organization. I'm less interested in this, but I know a lot of you are into that, so that's okay. And we have to deal with it at some point. So Local politics can be malleable too. Political organization. Developing political organization focused on fundamental issues rather than artificial divisions provides potential for meaningful. What's going on, Caddy? Relax. For meaningful social change. The restoration of human agency. The ultimate. Hey, I'm doing a video here, Cat. Just relax. The restoration of human agency. The ultimate goal of escape is the restoration of authentic human agency, the capacity for conscious choice and meaningful action. Individual sovereignty, which I'm questioning this a little bit, but we need some kind of agency, some kind of sense of self, even though deeper you go into, like, for example, Orthodox Christian worldview, you do get into self-denial, like denying the base desires and habits. Okay. But you have to at least have a coherent and a whole sense of self in order to even do self-denial. Okay. You have to defrag in order to actually handle and resist the passions. Okay. Oh, let's keep going. We're almost done. Reclaiming personal authority over decisions about health, education, work, and relationships. Collective self-determination, participating in communities that make collective decisions based on shared values rather than external manipulation. Cultural creation, participating in the creation of authentic culture based on human values rather than commercial or ideological manipulation. For example, sharing meals together. It can be that simple. Let's keep going. Spiritual development, engaging in authentic spiritual development that connects individuals to transcendent sources of meaning and purpose. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on us all. The escape plan represents a comprehensive program for reclaiming human dignity and agency in the face of systematic social engineering. While the challenges are enormous, human beings possess inherent capacities for growth, learning, and resistance that make freedom possible for those willing to undertake the necessary work of personal and collective transformation. And this is why I have created the Summerland Academy for Radical Undoing, because I see that almost all of the therapeutic framework is garbage and social engineering, and that almost all of the available solutions are actually part of the problem. And it's even if they have techniques that are actually useful for you, the worldview and the frame in which they're being delivered to you are creating more problems and more tension. Okay, Summerland Academy undoes all of that. How do I know? Because I went through the gauntlet of all this stuff, all the seeking beyond what you could even imagine. And I came out the other side. Thankful I'm still alive. Oh, conclusion, the path to liberation. And I hate the word liberation, but I'm saying liberation from the psychological warfare that's been foisted upon all of us. The evidence presented in this comprehensive analysis that I've given you reveals the existence of a coordinated, century-long or longer program of psychological warfare directed against human consciousness and the psyche itself. From the early experiments at Tavistock through the horrors of MKUltra and Phoenix to the contemporary assault on cultural and traditional values, we are witnessing the implementation of the most sophisticated system of social control in human history. Yet this analysis also reveals the inherent limitations of such systems. They depend upon human ignorance, social fragmentation, and spiritual emptiness. When individuals awaken to the reality of their situation and begin to reclaim their authentic capacities for thought, feeling, and action, the power of these control systems dissolves. The Summerland framework provides both diagnosis and cure. By understanding the systematic nature of psychological manipulation, we can begin to recognize its effects in our own lives, communities, and even our own bodies. By reclaiming our connection to physical reality, authentic relationships, and transcendent meaning, we can begin to escape the virtual hell that has been constructed around and within us. The choice is clear. This is a better angle. The choice is clear, my friends. Continued submission to psychological slavery, disguised as progress, or the difficult but ultimately liberating work of reclaiming our humanity. The evidence shows that the freedom remains possible for those courageous enough to pursue it. Let me give you an example. Pavlov's dogs, the famous experiment where Pavlov conditioned dogs to drool at the sound of a bell or at the appearance of a worker. They were in a basement, and the basement flooded. And what they found was that years and years of conditioning of these dogs, when the basement flooded and they escaped, all the conditioning was undone. Think about that. Freedom remains possible for those courageous enough to pursue it. We can come back from this manufactured destruction, but only if we choose to make it so. And as long as you remain unaware of the mechanisms, you're going to keep being subject to these things. But if you watch this whole video a couple times and really try to understand each of the sections, it's going to go a long way to getting you back grounded into awareness of what's really going on, where you can actually deal with things. So the cage door is open if you want to walk through it. Let's do just a little bit of recap. The escape plan: undoing the programming. Awareness: see the system, reject its deceptions, know that mental illness is not a disease, chemical imbalance is a myth, and psychiatric diagnosis is existential, social, and spiritual, never purely medical, which is a disaster. Refusal: defend your right and your children's right not to be diagnosed, medicated, or shamed for natural suffering, difference, or rebellion. Recovery: practice things such as orthodox nepsis, and nepsis is a Greek term meaning wakefulness or watchfulness in Orthodox Christian theology. It's a state of spiritual vigilance or sober-mindedness that involves constant awareness and guarding of one's thoughts to resist temptation and maintain an inner sense of peace. Now, it's not easy to do, and I'm not going to give you any spiritual advice, but I wanted to mention it so you're aware that something like orthodox nepsis even exists. Okay, you don't need some mindfulness program, but go, hey, no. Told you no. You're going to get kicked out of the room if you keep that up. Nah. So, no. Stay over there. I'm almost done, kitty. So practice nepsis, trauma-informed breath and body work, like the radical undoing work in the Summerland training, and embodied practices. Seek community, tradition, and lived action, not virtual escapes or chemical compliance. And resistance, every act of spiritual and personal reclamation, like prayer, creating things, becoming creative, sharing your gifts, sharing your God-given gifts with the people around you, whether that's online or even better in person. Share your gifts with people. Share your gifts. You have gifts you can share. Share your gifts with people. Become who you really are. All of this, and create real connection, establish connection, look people in the eyes, give a compliment to the clerk at the grocery store. Like I said, talk to your neighbors. All of this undoes the machinery of Tavistock, the Bernays, and the psychiatric state. The system only works, the system of psychological warfare that's been exacted upon us, only works if you let it name your pain and your suffering as disorder, your mind as diseased, or your child's spirit as a chemical defect. Summerland Academy is the counter-initiation, the path to naming, unmasking, and dismantling the machinery inside and out, restoring your dignity and your sovereignty to make these decisions for yourself at every level. The bars are simply pieces of paper. The chains are just words and ideas and physical tension in your body. And the time is now. As they said on one of my favorite shows, Millennium, which was created by Chris Carter, who made X-Files.